Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Catan New Energies from Klaus and Benjamin Tauber. Catan New Energies is the newest standalone version of Catan, a game that has been responsible for bringing many people into this hobby. For the sake of this review over here, I'm going to give you a very quick 30 seconds on what Catan is and how it works, then I'll talk about the differences that New Energies brings to the table, and then of course my thoughts and opinions on this version of Catan. If you are looking for a larger, how Catan works as a general principle, make sure to go ahead and check out any other review videos. There are an absolute ton of reviews, how to play, all that kind of information out there. To some extent, I'm assuming you'll either get by on the 30-second overview, or you already know what Catan is. To that end, as far as that 30-second overview, Catan is a game which players are striving to get to 10 points. It's going to play out on this shared board, a board that will look very similar to what you're seeing on the table, and on your turn, the basic idea is you roll dice, and then everyone is going to get resources based on the towns and cities they have next to that number. We roll the 6, so you're going to look at the 6, and everyone who has a location next to that will get resources, which they then use to build more towns and more cities, to grow their towns into cities, to buy development cards, and hopefully be the first person to get to 10 points. There's a lot more going on, but the basic idea is on your turn you roll a dice, and everyone gets resources regardless of whose turn it is. But only on your turn do you get to spend those resources to buy more and improve your tableau as you go through the game. That's your 30-second Catan in a nutshell kind of overview. As far as what does New Energies bring to the table, New Energies kind of sticks mostly with that core concept. If you are familiar with Catan, you will be familiar with New Energies. But the difference is it adds some new things for you to be mindful of as you play. The biggest of which is going to be the focus on the environmental aspect, the fact that you have this local footprint you're playing with as you go. You see, everything you build in the game contributes to the local footprint. That's going to track at the start of the game. For a 3-player setup, we are set up at 9, because each town contributes 1, and each city produces 2, and since you start with a town and a city, you are contributing 3 towards the local footprint, and in a 3-player game, 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 is the starting value. But then you have opportunities to affect that in a variety of ways. The first is you can build power plants. Power plants cost science. Science is a new resource over here, and it's going to be one of the changes to the game in that your cities no longer get double resources. Normally when you roll the dice in basic Catan, if I roll the 6, my city over here will get 2 wheat. In New Energies, you get 1 wheat, but you also get 1 science. Cities produce science plus their basic resource whenever you're gathering resources. With that science, there's a few things you can do with it. You can trade science in at a 3-to-1 ratio to go ahead and get any resource, which is a slightly better ratio than the standard 4-to-1 you get with other resources. But the main way you're going to want to use science is to build power plants, both dirty energy as well as clean energy over here. Your dirty energy power plants are much easier to get into the board. They cost 1 energy, 1 science I should say, so energy is a different resource which we'll get to, but they cost 1 science and they'll go onto the board into a divot on one of your towns or cities. Towns only have space for 1 power plant, versus cities can hold up to 3 power plants. Now when I roll a 6, in addition to getting the regular resources, because there's a power plant on my city over here, I'll also get 1 energy, which you can hold over here on your personal tableau. You can hold up to 5 energy, and you can spend it for a variety of things, which we'll come back to in a second. But before we do that, before we tell you what you can spend energy on, the reason I want to show you that is when you build a power plant, you're going to affect the local footprint. So your local footprint's going to go up 1, you're contributing 1 negative energy to the grid. On the other hand, when you pay 3 science over here, you're going to go ahead and add a green power plant over here, and you'll take it, you'll put it on the board. So let's say I put it over there, but then additionally, I am lowering my local footprint by 1. So positive power plants, these green ones, not only do they not contribute to the downside, they're going to actually help your local footprint. Additionally, they're going to have a little green token underneath them that will go into this bag that we haven't talked about yet, but it will improve what's in that bag. So that's the concept of the local footprint. You have a local footprint, it starts the game with a value of 9 or 12 depending on the player count. This is a 3 to 4 player game, and then as you build power plants and cities and towns, you're going to affect your local footprint, which is going to have an impact on the general count for the board, but will also have an impact on you personally. You do want to have a lower local footprint in this game because you'll often be rewarded for doing so. That's where we talk about this bag over here. This bag, before you start your turn, you're going to draw a token from the bag. Now when you start the game, you're only drawing 1 token. So over here, I gather this 1 token, I put on the matching spot on the board, and that's going to track that once we receive 4 of these, we're going to trigger something bad that will happen to either all the players, or alternatively, very often is going to most negatively affect those that have a lower local footprint. So they're bad for the environment in general, but the person who's contributing the worst to the local footprint, they're building a lot of power plants, they're not contributing the positive green energy, that's going to affect those players the most, for the most part. Over here, on this track over here, as we slowly move up our footprint, as you build more cities and towns, you're going to affect which line this is on, which also also affects how many tokens you draw from the bag. You'll be drawing 1 at the start of the game, but it can go up to 2 or 3 tokens drawn from the bag each turn. And that's on every player's turn. Tokens you'll be drawing from the bag, adding them to the board, which again will be those tokens over here that will have a negative effect. Now those green tokens, those ones that you're going to add to the bag whenever you build a good power plant, those are going to go on this side of the board over here, and those will positively impact those that have a good local footprint, a low local footprint in the game. So as you add green tokens to the bag, you're both preventing bad tokens being drawn that will hurt players, again, sometimes all players, sometimes specifically the players with the local footprint, but you're also generally contributing to having good tokens come out of the bag that will reward those with the lowest local footprint. So there is some degree of collaboration on this board as you're being mindful of as far as how your actions affect the entire board state, but in general, you still are going to be affected negatively or positively depending on your actions. So that's going to be the core concept over here of this local footprint, which you're going to start the game with. As you build, it's going to impact that, and then you have power plants, which gives you this new thing, this energy resource, which we still haven't told you how to spend it, and that's going to affect the local footprint as well. Which brings us to energy. Energy can be used for a few different things. The first is that 2 energy can be used to get any one of these card resources over here. The second is you can spend an energy to remove a hazard. Hazards will go on the game either in individual spots on the board, preventing that from generating, or sometimes directly on cities or towns, preventing that city or town from generating. And those will be removed in a few different ways, but the first way is as soon as a number is rolled, which would have generated. So for example, if we were to roll an 8 right now, we would then say, oh look, 8 didn't generate, now we're going to remove the hazard. So as soon as it actually does prevent generation, you'll remove the hazard. The other way, outside of some of the cards, is going to be over here. You can spend 1 energy to remove a hazard from the board. The other 2 ways you can spend that energy is you can spend 1 energy to return a power plant, one of those dirty power plants, you can return it, affecting your local footprint. So yes, you paid to get it out there, but as you start getting those other power plants in play, you might rethink your actions and want to positively impact, not just for the general well-being of the board, but for the way it affects you, pulling those power plants back. And one time you can spend 2 energy over here to increase your hand size to 10, which will help you when the robber, previously known as the robber, the energy emissions inspector, when he wanders around the board preventing players from generating, but whenever you roll a 7, you're going to both move the energy inspector, but also you would have to discard cards if your hand was above 7, and then this increases that to a size 10 instead. So those are the primary main mechanics you have going on. We have hazards, we have these tokens that have been drawn from the bag over here, you have the general local footprint, you have power plants instead, you have the science resource over here, you have a different deck of cards over here. These cards over here, they're going to be called the cleanup cards instead, and they're going to give you the same basic things you're used to from Catan, such as points or moving the inspector, research grant, different things that will help you in the game. And then you still have the longest trade route and the cleanest environment. Longest trade route will give you 2 points for having the longest road with at least 5, and cleanest environment is played for playing 3 cleanup cards. Who the first player to play 3 cleanup cards from this deck is going to go ahead and get that, which will give them 2 points as well. That is everything that is happening new in Catan New Energies. You're basically playing through standard Catan with an additional layer of strategy as far as how things will affect yourself, as well as how things will affect the greater environment as you play through the game. Which means it's time for my review, and I'm primarily going to be focusing, I guess, once again, let's do a little bit of a 30-second overview on Catan, and then give you my general thoughts on Catan New Energies. As far as my 30-second opinion on Catan, Catan is a great game, although it is a great game with a lot of caveats. Catan is a game that has both been a game that is so impactful as far as how many people it has brought into this hobby, and it does so by kind of towing the line between both worlds. It is not so strategic as to be overwhelming, and it's not so luck-driven as to be off-putting to more heavier gamers. It is often a game that represented a degree of, oh, games aren't just Monopoly, there's more to it. Look at this as I build up my tableau and feel a greater sense of agency over my decision. And look, we're not going bankrupt trying to figure out how we're paying you as we land on Park Place again. Rather, it's just about building my own engine, and sure, you won the game, but I was having fun building and developing whether or not I won. It's a game that has managed to offend neither party, and by doing so, it brings in a lot of people to the hobby, but it's also a game that generally, as players play more games, it tends to slowly get played less and less as what I would say, not necessarily better games, but better for the player games tend to show up on their doorstep, and they start playing games that have even more strategy than what Catan offers. And my general opinion is I've had a ton of fun playing Catan Catan over the years in a variety of implementations, from online to the tabletop, from playing through the base game, from playing through any number of expansions. I will talk more about my favorite versions of Catan shortly, but I'll say in general, my base opinion of Catan is it's a solid 3.5 out of 5. It goes up to a 4 with cities and knights and seafarers, honestly just cities and knights alone, but I like Catan while respecting the limitations that it has. So I'd say base Catan is a 3.5 out of 5 for me, and other versions of Catan with more content tend to go higher for me. That's basic Catan. As far as Catan New Energies, unfortunately not as good for me. For me, the best part of this game is that it still maintains the framework of Catan. Outside of that, oh, and the power plants. I like the power plants, I will say. The idea of building additional power plants and getting energy that you can convert for wilds, that's fun, that's a nice little twist. But the rest of what New Energies does, unfortunately, doesn't work as well for me. The theme I find less appealing. I'm into more of the the medieval nature of Catan as opposed to this more modern resources and all that. I feel more like I'm really building a settlement in something like Catan, as opposed to New Energies feels a little bit less, the theme comes through a little less for me. It feels like almost like a hybrid of trying to combine something new and something old as far as the theme. But that I can get over pretty quickly. More importantly, I'd say the mechanics of the game tend to be a bit more fiddly without adding enough to justify that fiddliness. The drawing from the bag at the start of every turn is an extra step that is just tedious. Putting these tokens down, and honestly, the token iconography is terrible. You are constantly trying to see which token is to where, just because of how gray and beiged out they are. You constantly are trying to figure out where they go. Not to a high degree, it's not like I can't look at the token, but it's not immediately obvious as you try to gather these tokens and put them out. Then you're tracking all the what the tokens do. You're constantly referencing the back of the rulebook to remember what it is that one token does versus another. And then additionally, you're managing these hazards that literally just don't feel super, I guess, thematic as far as the way they go on the board. There's a lot of things that the mechanics just generally feel more fiddly when you're playing through this experience, and you're also constantly tracking your local footprint. That's another thing you're going to be doing. Frequently, as I've played through this game, I found you'd have to do a recount of where the overall local footprint was, because players would forget, or the token would get knocked as you roll dice, or any number of things would happen. You were constantly rechecking the local footprint of the game to see if it matched up to where it was. And then whenever something happened that measured the local footprint, oh, the player with the lowest local footprint is getting impacted, you would go ahead and recount your local footprint because things had either changed or you just forgot because you don't always remember what that number is every time, and so it just added more steps. None of these steps are super bad. To be very clear, I don't want you to walk away with the impression that this was an incredibly fiddly experience. It's not, but it is Catan, and just more fiddly. And the problem is what it does better for the game is not a lot. I like the power plants, the rest of it didn't really add a lot to the experience for me. So as much as I do enjoy Catan New Energies, it primarily added extra steps and tracking and fiddliness to a small degree, but without improving the experience in a way that paid for that offset. And so for me, overall, where I am with this one, let's go to final thoughts on Catan New Energies. For me, Catan New Energies is a 3 out of 5. It's a half a point lower than Catan because it's Catan, but worse, at least for me. I like what they're trying to do with the game, I respect the changes they're going for, and I think this may well work for some groups as opposed to others, but I don't think it's a best go-to interaction for Catan. I think Catan is more accessible, and this is like a next step as far as extra levels of things without having that extra payoff. So it's a 3 out of 5 for me. I'd really recommend you just play Catan. Speaking of recommendations, as far as recommendations go, I'll recommend my favorite combination is going to be Catan plus cities and knights. Well, there are a lot of versions of Catan you can play, 2 players, other versions, there's things online you can find, there's lots and lots of expansions. I would say the best implementation if you're looking for core, straightforward, what you get, bang for your buck, let's call it, Catan plus cities and knights. Cities and Knights I find really takes Catan to the next level and adds a lot more to the gameplay experience and really moves it away from feeling like the game is mostly determined at the start of the experience. And then outside of that, if you're looking for something thematically, I highly recommend you check out Daybreak. If you do want a game that focuses on environmentalism and clean energy and all that, but does so in a way that I felt was a much stronger experience, I definitely recommend checking out Daybreak from Matt Leacock from CMYK. It's an excellent experience that, again, it's not about the theme, it's about when the theme works well, and in Daybreak, I think the theme works well. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.